Good evening and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressick, and this is your other host,
Christina Fasonic. How are you this evening, Damian?
It's a long day living in Reseda.
See, I was expecting something like fair to Midland or something like that, but yeah, I always like your answers better than the ones that I choose for you. So, I know. Anyways.
How are things in Wheeling, West Virginia this evening, Christina?
Well, I'm back from the ocean and I'm back in my chair working again, and I wish I was still at the ocean. So that's all I'm going to say. I think we all wish we were on some kind of permanent vacation. So tonight we have something a little different for our audience tonight. Instead of a reader, although our guest is a writer in his own right, he really is. He is the owner of a small press in Appalachia. And so let me introduce him, and then we will ask him some questions and let him talk to us about his press and, the kinds of ways that he serves the region by publishing regional authors. So
super cool.
Yes. So our guest tonight is J. Thomas Hetrick, an Air Force veteran. He owns and operates Pocal Press, a small press publisher who has produced over 90 books over the last 22 years. Genres include fiction, memoir, war stories, Western, spiritual, and baseball. All titles are available on the company website and on Amazon in print and Kindle volumes. So let's bring him on and hear more about the work that he does.
So welcome, Mr. Hetrick.
Hello. How are you?
Great. How are you? Good to be here.
Thank you so much. Doing well. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Christina, I want to ask a quick question before we get to Mr. Hetrick, because you'd said all titles are available on the website. Could you tell the folks at home what the website is?
Yes, it's www. Of course, Pocal Press. Pocal, that's P as in Papa, OCOLPRESS.com.
Thank you very much.
I'll type that in.
What? You'll what?
I'm typing it in right now.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So J. Thomas, tell us how you got started. I mean, putting together a literary press is a significant endeavor. How'd that happen?
Well, about 20 plus years ago, I wrote a book about the worst baseball team in the history of major leagues. And I
don't want to give it away, but they wouldn't happen to be playing in a city that advertises itself as having a couple of rivers.
Well, this is the city of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And the story, it's a long story. We won't go into that right now, but I was writing this book. I had researched at the Library of Congress and to get all the newspaper data back in 1899. And I sent it off to 7 publishers and received immediately 7 rejections. And then the 8th publisher in North Carolina, a company called McFarland, took it on because they like baseball history. And they published it. And I decided that, publishing seems to be kind of a difficult thing. I didn't know a whole lot about the publishing part of it. So I decided, I'm going to start my own press and see what happens. And that was 20 years ago. And now here we are, and I'm 90 some titles in, 82 in print today.
That's incredible. What a great service to the region. What has been your best-selling title up to date?
The best-selling title was a book that I published, the 3rd book in the group. It's called Sacred Voices, Women of Genesis Speak. And it's written by a Jewish lady who's writing about biblical women characters. As you probably know, the Jewish Torah has as its first, the first part of the Torah is the what we call the Old Testament in Christianity. That's why they call it the Judeo-Christian thing. So she talks about what women would say had they had a voice. And they don't have a voice in the Bible and in the Torah. And so she imagines them as being conversational or being able to emote. And it's pretty sensational. It is poetry, and it's sold the most copies, and not only among Jewish people, but among Christians as well, all over Northern Virginia, especially.
Oh, that's fascinating. Cool.
She's done readings. Her name is Sherry Shunfenthal, and she's quite a poet.
Very cool. Yeah. So how did you get from, now when Christina was describing all the amazing things your press is doing, how did you get from baseball to such a kind of broad quiver of genres?
Well, because I'm a pretty eclectic guy. I like a lot of different things. And my dad, who he's the guy probably that got me interested in reading. Ironically, he did not graduate from high school. He got a GED, entered the Army at a young age. And he used to make the joke all the time that, we're going to fill our house with books. And when it gets too full, we just have to move and we'll get more books. And this is a man that, again, did not even have a high school education, but he was always reading about history and technology, especially about cars and mechanical things. And he kind of got me really interested in reading at a young age, and I haven't stopped. I'm always reading something. So the reading idea, really, really helped as a publisher, because I'm the one that reads all the material and makes a decision on it.
So what was the next thing when you did? So you started with baseball. What did you move on to then? What was the next thing?
I moved on to several other topics: fiction, short stories, and novels. I have memoir, which seems to be one of my stronger topics right now. It's a really hot topic. Westerns, I just love Western short stories, like the Louis L'Amour stuff. I've got one particular writer who is literally a Western writing genius. His name is Tom Sheehan. He's 94 years old, and he lives in Saugus, Massachusetts, and he is still writing. Then I have another category called war stories, which is fiction and nonfiction stories about conflicts of America. I have Civil War, I have the Vietnam War, I have World War II, World War I. So I have all kinds of different wars that are discussed. And then the spiritual is the one that's Sacred Voices resides in. Mm-hmm. And some other titles. So those are the 6 main categories, but I like many other things, but those are the ones that I have sort of made a niche out of.
So how do you find the books you want to publish? Are folks reaching out to you, or how does that happen? How are those marriages made?
Well, I'm listed in the Writer's Market magazine, or actually it's a book that comes out every year. And I have a website that you've already heard about. And people send me query letters, and I look at the material and I decide whether or not I want to publish it or not. It's not something where I'm making millions of dollars or anything like that. I'm a small press publisher, and I have, my vendors are Amazon and, some of the big names like that. But, I do it all in-house. I do it all.
Yes, I have 2 books out from small to medium-sized presses. And I'll tell you what, not one of those people has a jet.
I do not have a jet or a Sea-Doo or a yacht or anything like that.
So, you've been doing this for 22 years. How has this industry changed? How have you seen the landscape of small presses change during that time?
Well, no doubt it's the digital landscape that has changed dramatically, and the idea of offset printing versus now what they call publishing on demand. The early offset days, I would have to order a minimum of 500 copies. And as a small press, you just can't sell 500 copies unless you've got some marketing team behind you and doing all this. And I never had that. So I'm doing it all myself. And now things have shifted into the digital publishing world, not only, with Kindle and, all the different kinds of ebooks, but that's also impacted the way the books are printed. So you can print very small amounts of copies and sell them on demand much more easily to libraries, to bookstores, to individuals.
Yeah, gone are the days of.
I don't have an inventory. I used to have an inventory that was, literally thousands of books in my house. I don't have a warehouse, or I don't have a store or a brick and mortar. So I had at one time 7,000 books in my house, and that did not bode well with my marriage. But anyway, I ended up liquidating all of those books, and now it's strictly you publish on demand, and I can print as many as I want whenever I want.
I was going to say, gone are the days that writers have that closet full of books, or a garage full of books.
Well, they've had them for 20 years. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now, has that changed who you're willing to publish, or what kinds of books you're willing to publish? The fact that you don't have to have a run of 500, does that open some doors for folks? Yeah, it does a lot. Really, one of the ways we've advertised is the fact that we're not looking for people that are established authors. We're looking for first-time authors, first rodeo, if you want to call it that, and they will send in stuff, and then. A lot of people like us, so we've published multiple books by certain individuals. One individual that I mentioned earlier, Tom Sheehan, he has 13 titles currently. 8 of them are Western short stories. One of them is a memoir, and then the other 4 are short stories. And he writes also about his experiences in Korea. And I mean, this is one of the most amazing writers you will ever read. Props to him. He has the best war short story I've ever read in my life.
Wow.
Cool. What book is that from? I want to hear about that.
Well, it's a book called A Collection of Friends. The book was written with a specific idea in mind, where he has he sent me fiction and nonfiction stories together in this giant box. And I weeded it out, and I found out that many of the stories were autobiographical. So I sorted them out by eras of his lifespan. So I had his adolescence, and then I had his growing up days and his work days, and then military days, and then back to his older ages, and then time in Korea and being a technical writer and whatnot. And it serves as an autobiography, but it's a collection of short stories. But what's really unusual about this book is that he never, ever uses the word I. So it's an autobiography / memoir without using the word I. Think about it. And all of the collection of friends are family and friends that he's met, that he honors throughout the years.
Very cool.
Really interesting.
About that, yeah. I wanted to know, like, when you work with your authors, do you take an active editing role, or are you kind of hands off, or what's that like working with you?
Very active editing role, and my philosophy is that the author's voice will always shine through. I don't take magic markers and giant red pens to things. If you write something down, unless it's egregiously historically wrong, like a woman was writing some stuff about the Nazis in World War II, in a World War II novel she wrote. And, some of the stuff just was not accurate at all. So I corrected it, and I said, look, here's the sources. If you don't trust me, you go back and check. And she was okay with that, and we fixed that all up. But generally, I let their voice stand loud and clear.
So, people say you should never judge a book by looking at the cover, but we know that covers are important. So do you have an in-house cover designer, or do you do that? How do you do that?
I am the in-house cover designer, and I sometimes work with the authors who have their own ideas about covers as well. But I generally do the covers, and my daughter hates them. My one daughter always hates the covers, but I really like the covers. I think I have some really unique covers and some artists. And I even have a Rene Magritte on one of the books that I had to get permission to use one of his artworks. So that's one of the books I've published.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so important because it's like an interpretation of the text.
It is very much. But
yeah,
covers are really fun to do. They're really fun to dig your teeth into, play with that.
One of the things that I've noticed in the past, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years, maybe longer than that, is that when you approach a publisher of any size, one of the questions they ask is, "What's your platform?" So how do you address that with your audience? And what I mean, of course, is what audience do they already have? Are they doing social media? How are they going to get the word out about their book? So how do you address that, and how has that changed over time?
Yeah. The way I address it is I send them out an author questionnaire, and the questionnaire will have things about their background, where they've lived, where they went to school, I've even I've asked religious affiliation if it's necessary to, what you're writing about. Sometimes it is, most of the time it's not. But then there's a whole series of questions about media. Do you have you done media? Have you done radio, television, internet? And or do you local newspapers, do they know about your work? Would they cover things? Local bookstores and so on and so on. So we come to kind of an agreement about various things. And because I've published so many different of these different genres, I have mailing lists based on the genres. So, for example, a military book in some way, I have all these different military organizations that I'll reach out to tell them about these books. And a brand new book is coming out called The Flats. I'm happy to say very, very soon. And it is about the coal, the people that worked in the coal industry in Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, very cool. That was my last question. What do you have going on right now that you want to tell people about?
That's the one we have going on right now that we're really excited about. It's a domestic story about a man who's in his 60s writing about his time as a 5 and 6 year old, writing about his mother and his stepfather and his sister, who he calls Turtle. That's her nickname because she always did things slowly. So it's called The Flats. It's set in Twin Rocks, Pennsylvania in the 50s. And it's really, really a fascinating read.
Now, is Twin Rocks a real town, or is this an invention of the author's imagination?
No, Twin Rocks is actually a real town, and it's right next to the town of Nantiglow, if you know that town.
Nantiglow?
Yeah, Nantiglow, Pennsylvania. Yeah. These were all coal mining towns back in the day, and it's not very far from Johnstown. I think it's in Cambria County, but I'd have to check that.
That sounds right. Yes, my first novel is set during the 1922 coal strike in Windber, Pennsylvania.
Okay, wow, Windber, yeah. I mean, all of this area, even Punxsutawney was a big coal and coke town back in the 20s. That's how the population grew here.
Yeah, I'm always interested in that. And us, the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia, the industrial heritage of the region is something that a lot of us have talked about within our group. And we're even going to have some presentations that deal with about a bit of that at a conference coming up, don't we, Christina? Could you tell some, you know what, maybe some folks from Coal Press might be interested in this conference.
I've tried getting them interested in this. So we do have a conference coming up, the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia's annual conference, September 10th through the 12th at Ogilvy Park in Wheeling, West Virginia, where I'm almost always broadcasting from. There is still plenty of time to register. Get out there and do it. And we're really excited. We have a great lineup, 2 keynote speakers, 20 plus presenters about subjects, from, as Damien was saying, industry, specifically women in the steel industry is one of our presenters is going to be talking about, but also just the nuts and bolts of writing too. So it's going to be a really good time. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jay Thomas. And
yes, and
people found this valuable because Bart, who tunes in regularly, has said, good show, interesting and informative. And I'm sure that he's not the only one who found this to be very enlightening.
No, I thought it was great. I know when I was an emerging writer and trying to find a press that might be interested in what I was doing. Where do you look? And I think it's, when you're looking through the writer's market, being able to put a face with a name and understand that this is, you can't tell one thing from another sometimes. So this has been really great. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week as we march further on towards the conference. So see you next Thursday at 8 p.m.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.
Night, everybody.